All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Most of us woke up this morning to the news that all star guard James Harden had been traded by the Philadelphia 76ers to the Los Angeles Clippers. And when you think about a player with the career resume of Harden, this news is usually met with plenty of fanfare, but at the end of the day, it's just another transaction in the NBA. Now, Harden, along with PJ Tucker and Philip Putrasev, are headed to LA, while the Clippers are sending Marcus Morris, Robert Covington, Nick Batum, and KJ Martin, along with several draft picks, which includes an unprotected first rounder in 2028. We're accustomed to seeing star players or rising stars being traded for a guy like Harden, but this deal further illustrates to me that the NBA has just gotten tired of Harden's act. Aside from the Clippers, nobody, no other team in the NBA wanted Harden, and Los Angeles, they were basically bidding against themselves. Now, yes, Harden only wanted to really play for the Clippers, but at 34 years of age, there isn't much space for a player who has complained his way out of so many convenient situations. To quote a good friend of mine, and I hope he gets an opportunity to check this out, but we've run out of ways to play with James Harden. And you think about it, started off in OKC, helped them get to the finals, was traded after that to the Houston Rockets, who moved heaven and earth to make and keep James Harden happy, and they still could not win a title. Didn't even come close. Brought in Mike D'Antoni as the head coach, gave him players such as Clint Capella, Russell Westbrook, PJ Tucker, Chris Paul, and Eric Gordon, just to name a few. Then, James Harden, like I said before, he played with Kevin Durant twice, once in OKC and then in Brooklyn. And then when he got to Brooklyn, he was okay playing with KD, but then he didn't want to play with Kyrie and he pouted his way out of there. Goes to Philadelphia. He could not be the Robin to Joel Embiid's Batman. And of course, we saw how things just melted down last year in the playoffs. Philly blew a 3-2 series lead against the Boston Celtics. And, you just watch it and you see that team, i.e. James Harden, just quit on Doc Rivers. So you're looking at it right now. Obviously the straw that broke the camel's back in Philadelphia was the whole issue with Daryl Morey. James Harden opted in, hoping to to get a new deal, which didn't come. Was hopeful to get traded. Obviously, he went publicly and expressed his feelings about Daryl Morey. But at the end of the day, it's one of those where again we're running out of ways to make James Harden happy. And at the end of the day, when you're on the other side of 30 in the NBA and you're like 6'5" and you come a dime a dozen, and people have basically seen what you can and cannot do. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, at the end of the day, James Harden's best days are behind him. He's going to be remembered as a phenomenal scorer in the NBA, but he's going to be one of those yeah, but guys. And at the end of the day, some people are going to look at him as being selfish as well. Now, you look at this Clippers team, and this is going to be the third time that James Harden is playing with Russell Westbrook. You've also got to factor in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Now, for me, this would have been a great team about 7 or 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. This would have been a phenomenal team. All of these guys are on the other side of 30. And with the exception of Russ, they got injury histories and they have issues being able to stay healthy, especially Kawhi Leonard and Paul George since they've joined the Clippers. So I mean, you figure the Clippers are another team. They went out there and moved heaven and earth to get Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. And what have they got to show for it? Not a lot. They got to the Western Conference Finals a couple of years ago, and of course, they did that without a healthy Kawhi Leonard. We saw last year briefly what the Clippers could have been if everybody was healthy. And I just think that the Clippers title window has passed them. When you think about things in the Western Conference right now, obviously when it comes to the title contenders, you're looking at the Denver Nuggets, the defending champions. You're looking at the Los Angeles Lakers. You're looking at the Phoenix Suns. And I know that we're still here in the early stages of this NBA season, but those are the teams, in my opinion, that are at the top of the list. as far as being championship contenders out of the West. The Clippers have what it takes to make the playoffs, but again, this would have been a good team about 10 years ago. So I'm really not sold on the Clippers going out there and getting James Harden. On the flip side, for Philadelphia, you get rid of a guy who didn't want to be there. You get rid of a guy who had the potential to be a cancer on your team. And hopefully, Daryl Morey is ready to move on from James Harden once and for all. Of course, he was a guy running the front office in Houston that made all these trades, made the trade to get James Harden, made the trades to put all of the people around James Harden. And obviously, in coming to Philly, he went out there to get him again, made the move to trade Ben Simmons to the Nets in exchange for James Harden. But my thing was this. I think the Philadelphia 76ers, they missed the shark a couple of years ago, obviously, when they chose Ben Simmons over Jimmy Butler, and it's been downhill for them ever since, in my opinion. Now, with this said, coming back to the present, I will say that if you're the Sixers, you're happy to move on from James Harden. You did it early in the season, like I said, so you don't have the potential of this to get out of control with the media, with the fans, with the team, you name it. Now you get to move on. You've got a new head coach in Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse is a no nonsense guy. Nick Nurse is trying to establish his system in Philadelphia to win. And now you've got a locker room full of guys that are going to be committed to each other, that are going to be committed to the Philadelphia 76ers, that are going to be committed to winning a championship for the first time in more than 40 years for this franchise potentially. Now, I look at it like this. Everything still goes through the big man, Joel Embiid. He's the MVP, he's the reigning MVP. And of course, a guy like Embiid in the prime of his career, he's going to be right in that discussion to win once again. We're seeing what Tyrese Maxey can be now in Nick Nurse's system, and I think the future is so bright for this young man. You also brought in another solid scorer in Kelly Oubre Jr., who I think has the potential to play off of both Maxey and Embiid in this offense. And let's not forget about Tobias Harris. And then, of course, you bring in more depth with the likes of Nick Batum and Marcus Morris. So I think that just by the Sixers moving on from James Harden, I think they won this trade. I think this was a desperate move by the Clippers to go out there and get James Harden for what? I don't even think the acquisition of James Harden is going to help the Clippers sell tickets at this point. I mean, the Clippers are going to sell tickets regardless in LA, but nonetheless, the Clippers are no closer to being a championship contender today than they were yesterday at this time before this trade was made official. So I think it's another reach by the Clippers to try to make something happen. I think if you're the Sixers, honestly, at this point, if the Sixers had traded James Harden to the Globetrotters, I think that would have been a step in the right direction just to move on from him and just to focus on the task at hand as far as trying to win and try to get out of the East, which is easier said than done because, Milwaukee obviously is going to need time to gel in Boston. Those are the two top teams. I think that Philadelphia is still a rung down from those two teams on the ladder. Obviously, we still got plenty of time before the trade deadline. We got to see how these teams look overall for a chunk of the season before we could see who needs to make another deal. But nonetheless, James Harden's on the move again. It's one of those where I think the end is not going to be as impactful as it was for the bulk of his career because I think at the end of the day, James Harden is going to play his way out of the league. The Clippers made the move for him. I don't see any other teams that are going to go out there and give him big money next year anyway, either. But if you're the Sixers, just to move on from James Harden, I think you won this trade. Typically, I'd say let's sit back and see. But at this point, I think the Philadelphia just won this trade just to wash their hands of the whole Harden situation, if you will. So let's see what's ahead for the Sixers during this season. Let's see what's ahead for the Los Angeles Clippers. And let's see if James Harden maybe, just maybe, can get things going for himself in LA. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you. We're tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 pounds of sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.